And, it's a 95 acre sports complex. And it's
quite the investment.
It's enormous.
For sure.
It is really, really big. And basically, if you stand on the south edge of the Shields store and look directly west as far as you can see to the woods, and then look directly north as far as you can see to the woods, that whole area
That's big. Yeah.
is a sports complex.
Yeah. Joining us today at the table is Ryan McCrady, the president and CEO of the Springfield Sangamon Growth Alliance. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan.
We appreciate you being here. We, as you know, back a number of weeks we had Nicole Bateman on, who I think the two of you worked together when you were leading the Economic Development Corporation in Decatur and Macon County.
Yeah, well, we did. We worked very closely together. When I went to work at the EDC in Decatur in January 2015, it was myself and our administrative assistant in there, and I knew quickly I had to build a good team, and I was smart enough to find one of the smartest people in town to come to work with me. So Nicole and I, rebuilt everything there and started the community marketing and branding campaign in the Midwest Inland Port, and did a lot of really, really great things. And Nicole's an outstanding leader. And I was really glad to see her and what she's still doing over in Decatur.
Yeah.
Yeah, she shared a lot of really encouraging things with us. The day she was
sounds
on.
like things are going. Yeah,
they're doing
along over there. Yeah,
they're doing a great job. They have great assets to support business, and the anchor tenants, so to speak, they have over there. The opportunity to draw other attention to the community based on them, and those businesses' desire to cooperate in economic development. Is a really big factor in those successes that they've had. And that, and Nicole and her team are really good at what they do. And
cool.
You get a project, and they're going to hold on to it until it gets done.
Yeah, that's terrific.
So when you went to before the EDC in Decatur, you were city manager.
That's right.
Prior, okay, and then prior to that, you were here in Sangamon County as the county administrator. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. I started when I first got out of college. I was a banker, and I stumbled into a job in county government back when Neil Williamson was sheriff of Sangamon County. Back in 1996, the county was looking for a finance person to help with the business side of the sheriff's office. So not the law enforcement side, just the business, all the fun stuff, personnel, collective bargaining, appropriation, the county, purchasing, for the jail too, and all that kind of stuff. And I was lucky enough to get that job and get to work with Sheriff Williamson, who is still a very close friend of mine to this day and taught me so much.
Sure.
I had never worked in government, nor had I never interacted with law enforcement, which was a good thing, right? I didn't have a lot of experience with them, but to go into that environment and then work with those folks and get to see just really what it takes, to do that job. Yeah. And the jail was an experience all of itself. Yeah. And understanding that, and that that the sheriff's office was over a third of the county's entire budget. So they wanted to have someone dedicated to doing that. And then I got fortunate enough to be appointed as county administrator. My last 6 years I was at the county, and worked with Chairman Van Meter on the county board, and was chief appointed official for county government. Brian McFadden has that job now. Right. So apparently you have to be a Mick, go from one to the other.
Never thought about that. Know Brian well.
And every once in a while we get phone calls for each other. Someone thinks they're talking to Ryan McCrady, or talking to Brian McFadden, and vice versa. But Brian has that job now. It's a big job. You definitely keep you busy. And based on that experience, I was able to get hired as city manager in Decatur, and ran the city of Decatur for 6 years. And it's a different form of municipal government than what we have in Springfield. So I
was going to ask you, is there, and obviously it's different, but is there one that you like better than the other?
That's a great, I was going to ask the same. I was going to say, pros and cons of both systems, because they're very, very different.
Right. Yeah, it's a really loaded question, because a lot of people are very passionate about which one they like better.
Okay, because I don't know anything about that.
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the people involved. There is no perfect form of government, and it really comes down to having the right people. It's so different than what you see in Springfield. So in Decatur, the city government kind of runs like a corporation would run. So a board of directors would hire a president or CEO, right, to run the operations.
Right.
And that individual would report to the board, and then everybody in the company would report to that president and CEO. And that's how it's set up in a city manager form of government.
Okay.
So that form of government is a statutory form of government in Illinois.
Okay.
So the city manager has statutory duties, and everybody in the city works for the city manager.
Okay.
The city manager reports to the mayor and the council members, so that's kind of like the board of directors, and that's who you report to. So I used to call it the one throat to choke form of government because if they didn't like something going on, there was only one person whose destiny that they could control, and that was mine.
Yeah, sure.
But it was quite a challenge, and as far as what form is better, in Springfield you have the mayor aldermanic form of government, where the mayor's the full-time CEO and running the entity, and then the council has some appointment authority, and and the council members all represent geographic areas.
Right.
So in Decatur, all 7 of the council members are elected at large from around the community. So they don't have any defined geography, but the community itself has policed that well over the years to make sure they had proper diversity on the council.
Yes.
And geographic representation. So the community's done a good job of doing that, but it's more than a full-time job. I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
You think about running everything from public safety to public works to water to sewer to code enforcement. To, I used to say it's like the plate spinner at the circus.
Yeah,
You
sure.
gotta keep them all going and go back and check on them. But
Yep.
I have really, really good staff, really professional staff that have been doing their jobs for a decade or more, that understood it. And I had a good mayor and city council to work for, and we got a lot of things done.
Yeah.
And there are some challenges, and after living a public life like that for almost 20 years, I was ready to still be involved in the community, but not so much on the front page of the newspaper, I guess you could say.
Right.
And so that's why I was able to get into economic development and moved over to Decatur EDC.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to imagine that with your experience with the county here in Sangamon County, and then with the city of Decatur, the mix of dealing with government and municipalities is a unique tool that you bring to the table for economic development that a lot of economic development professionals maybe don't have that hands-on experience with.
Yeah. I think you can say that about a lot of things in your career. You wouldn't be as good at this step as you hadn't done this step before you got
For
there.
sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And, having an experience in both city and county government is a real asset for me. Most of your government in America is local. It really, really is. And so kind of understanding what governments can and can't do, and explaining that to developers who might want them to do some things that they can't do, and don't understand why they can't do it, and being able to take that perspective on it and understand that, and then really appreciate what the elected official has to deal with also. They still have a whole lot of constituents that they have to keep in mind, and the elected official has an obligation to do the best thing for their constituents.
Sure.
And that may or may not be what somebody else wants them to do, but that's their obligation.
Yeah.
And you always have to remember that and be sensitive to that
Sure.
when you work with them and chat with them.
Yeah. When you've been over here, if I remember right, you started with the EDC here shortly after COVID.
May of 2020.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And we really first connected because I was at the Chamber of Commerce, and Ryan was coming over. Now that you've been in Springfield, back in the Springfield community for a few years, when you think about Decatur and Springfield, what are ways, and not in a pro or con kind of way, what are the unique differences of the two communities that you've experienced from the different seats that you have that you've been sitting in?
Well, I mean, there's some things that are very similar and some things that are very different. I remember when they announced I was taking the job in Springfield, the first phone call I got was from some guy named Chris Hembrough.
Oh, yeah.
Who was running the Chamber of Commerce there. So
I love it.
wanted to let me know that he was happy I was coming over, and it was a really good conversation.
That's great.
And it meant a lot that he reached out to me like that.
Yeah.
And Decatur and Springfield are similar in some ways. Probably their economies are the biggest difference that you'll see. So Decatur has a really rich history of manufacturing. Not just, and we all know about the world's largest mining trucks at Caterpillar that are made there, but also in food and biopharmaceuticals. And people are surprised about that sometimes, that there's 350 of the world's top food scientists work in Macon County every day at places like Permanent, which used to be Staley's, ADM, and the research and the technology they're doing there to create healthy food ingredients to go into other products is really, really interesting. So, of course, you have this large, heavy metal manufacturing. You have two of the largest corn and soybean crushing plants in North America located there too. But then you have the food science going on, and you have pharmaceutical companies. And, why are those two there? Well, the same education you get to be a food scientist is very similar to the education you get to work in pharmaceuticals. So the skill set transcends across two different industries going on. And it's really, really fascinating, the size of manufacturers and the amount of pride that members of that community have in the community. Now, it's a full-time job for some folks to criticize Decatur. Oh, yeah. Of course, there's an odor that comes off from the fermentation of some of the products that they make. The people over there say it smells like money. Yep. And it does. It does. It puts a lot of money. A lot of people's checking accounts for the work there. Yeah. But the folks that live there are very proud and not slow to tell you what they think. So, that sometimes in Springfield, we're a little more on the Midwest nice side of things, and you sometimes don't know if someone's telling you the truth. I actually love that about Decatur, that if I asked someone, what do you think about this, I knew I was going to get a real answer. The Springfield community is a little more what they would call professional white collar type positions. So the economy's different there. One of the things that's common across both places is they're really small towns. Everybody you meet either has been, or might be related in the future. You have to remember that.
That's right. Always remember that.
Springfield's really that way. Yeah,
both communities are that way. Springfield is much more connected to partisan politics, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Between the two-party politics, Republican, Democrat. I think that's a fair assessment of the community. Yeah. In Decatur, it was funny. The political alignments were much more based on family and personal relationships. So I would drive around town, you'd see a house that has both a Republican and a Democrat candidate sign in their front yard, and it's so. Being interested, I would talk to people like, well, my mom worked with his dad at the grocery store, and I knew his brother played football with him or whatever. There was what mattered was that personal connection. So Decatur is really a town of relationships.
I would agree with that.
You guys know that from being over there. Yeah. Being in the town, getting to know folks. Yep. They want to do business with someone that they know. Sure. But they're both really, really interesting communities. And Decatur is an economic powerhouse. We look at the GDP of that town, and you think about every one of those mining trucks they roll off of there, $7 million or something, off the Caterpillar plant.
Yes.
It's really, really interesting. So don't sleep on them.
No. Yeah. And it's a very generous community, I think.
They are.
With the people that live there. And at least when I told Chris that, having come over to Springfield and be, living here now for, 8 to 10 years, everything he said is 100% accurate. Because so many of the people, at least, I grew up in Decatur, went to local schools there, and then went to St. Teresa, but all my buddies left Decatur. They didn't come back. Whereas in Springfield, most people come back here. Yeah. Not all, but most. Whereas, it would be rare to not bump into somebody that went to Springfield High that's running a business or heavily involved in government, or, the Troxel folks, all the Griffin folks that are over there, So, yeah.
The other thing that people don't realize about Decatur is the amount of international diversity that exists in the community. I think one time at the Decatur Public Schools, they had as many as 15 different languages spoken by the students there.
Wow. No kidding.
And you would think it'd be very much a, Midwestern typical community, but the large employers bring so much diversity into the community that you don't even think about. Yeah, you're right. That's really enriching to get to know. We got to know so many people of different cultures over there, and still friends with them now. And it was really nice to have our kids in the Decatur Public Schools getting that exposure to lots of different folks and learning about their cultures.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. One of the things I find unique, I know when Brad was opening the location here in Springfield and expanding the footprint for Peerless, one of the differences he's talked about is that while Decatur's very relational, it's even thicker, if you will, in Springfield.
It really is.
That he learned really pretty quickly that if you don't live here, send your kids to school here, go to church here, buy local here.
See you in the grocery stores.
Then it is a different animal to try to tackle to do business here.
Absolutely.
If you're an outsider,
without a doubt.
And I found that really unique from somebody who came from the outside. I grew up here, of course, was gone for 20 years and came back. But it was amazing when I came back. I was one of us, even though I'd been gone for 20 years. So it kind of fits exactly.
And I kind of had the same thing when I came back. I was gone for about 12 and a half years. But when I came back, it was, I picked right up where I left off with a lot of folks. And, I've heard this statement before that people do business with people, not with other businesses, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So that personal relationship is a real competitive advantage when you can get that and draw on it.
Yeah. I wonder if some of that international nature of what you're describing about Decatur contributes to that. Being maybe not quite so strong as it is here.
Most
not
likely,
saying that strong is better, but different.
There's a lot of turnover in that community, right?
Because of that.
As people transfer, multinational corporations and get moved, so there's a lot of churn with the people that are there. So probably something to do with it.
Yeah, Brad's noticed what he just mentioned. A lot of folks come back in Springfield, and I know a lot of Springfield folks say people leave and never come back. My sense, as I have watched over the 20 years I've been back in Springfield, is that we do have more of that. It feels like there's more of that today than there was 10 or 12 or 15 years ago. Your seat doing economic development, you probably have a pretty good handle on that. Would you agree?
I would agree. There's a lot of, in economic development, we call those people boomerangs.
Yes.
I'm always trying to get more boomerangs, trying to get people to come back into the community and to live here. And we see a lot of that. COVID, we like to blame everything on COVID, right? But honestly, it changed so much the way people work, and it changed so much the way people decide where they want to live and what matters. And I believe one of the big draws into this community is the healthcare community. And obviously with what our world went through with the pandemic, the focus on healthcare becomes even more important. And it'd be hard to beat a community or hard to beat us for that with what we have here with all of our great healthcare providers and the expertise. So that draws a lot of folks back. And, we have we're an affordable place to live. So a little bit of breaking news. We'll be announcing this week that Springfield was designated as the second most affordable place to live by Empower. They recently did an article in Reader's Digest about that. We're second only to Sioux Falls.
Oh,
no. So that's a good announcement. It measures things like wages compared to cost of living, housing costs, transportation costs, all those things. So
that's great.
It's really good news for us, and it is a big factor we can use to try to attract employers and for employers to use to attract future workers, to want to be part of the community. And with remote working, you can live somewhere that's very affordable and good quality of life and still make your wage that you make from your employer. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good place. But I do see a lot of folks that come back here and are very, very happy to be here. Right? Great schools, great quality of life. You look at the school systems that exist here in the city and then in all the neighboring communities. They're really good schools.
Yes.
A lot of good options too, depending on what size of school you might want to go to and things like that. And there's power in having options. And people here have a lot of options. So that's a powerful position.
Well, and the surrounding community. Chris and I were just at a football game in Williamsville. That school was that campus was
unbelievable.
Fast. Nice. I would have no problem moving into this community and being out on that northern district area, or you look at Chatham and then what 186 is doing with their facilities. It's a lot of good stuff going on.
It's a long way from that high school basketball game I played in Tovey, Illinois, where you went up for a layup and you landed and you actually ran through the door out into the area where my mom and dad were out there. I'm like, hey, Dad, during warm-ups, I had to turn real quick and come back out onto the floor.
I love it. This was really good.
Awesome.
The place was so small. It has come a long way, and the sales tax that supports those schools shows potential businesses that this community values education. And so actually, if I have a prospect come to town, one of the things I show them are the schools. I'll drive them by and show them what's going on at Landfair. And say, look, we're going to be building workers for the future that are going to help support your business. Those things really matter a lot.
Yeah. First thing people think about, right? Where I want to send my kids.
That's
take me by the schools before I do anything else.
Oh yeah.
Well, it really seems like I'm know Charlotte out at Lincoln Land community. I mean, the partnership with industry or like hospitals, the nursing programs, the ag deal that they're starting down there. There's a lot of great things that where the partnerships or at least the communication between the needs, what the community needs, and then education here as well. And I'm not as familiar with UIS, but it seems heading in the right direction.
No, it is. There's a direct connection between the businesses and the educational institutions. If you think about it like this, so the educational institutions produce a product that's consumed by the businesses, and that's workforce.
Right.
It's workers or future workers and skills. And so there seems to be really good communication between the consumer, the business, and the producer, the educational institution. And Lincoln Land, I mean, it's an outstanding organization. I'm an alum of Lincoln Land, but what Dr. Warren's done there with her team and what she's done to support businesses and the training programs that go on. I mean, obviously, if you want to do a career that requires a 4-year education, you can get a great, first 2 years in there at Lincoln Land. But if you want to go into the workforce out of high school or as an adult that wants to retrain and change your place in the workforce, there's so many opportunities out there. It's unbelievable. And go out there and go to work. There's a direct connection to going to work by going there. And UIS has done a really good job with their programs too. Chancellor Gooch has been really great for UIS, and I see those connections growing stronger and stronger between UIS and the business community too.
Awesome. How about Sports Park, the deal at Shields? How's that all developing?
Yeah, that was it. That was one of the easiest projects I ever worked on. I'm just kidding. So, the April Fool's version of the podcast. But they are moving a ton of dirt out there in the sports complex. They started with that groundbreaking, I think, a Wednesday or a Thursday, and on Monday they had equipment out there. They took the beans out over the weekend, and they were ripping and moving a lot of dirt out there. They're trying to get as much of the surface work done as they can before the weather shuts them down, and they'll go below surface and work on that. That was a project that was a long time coming. And when Chris was still at the chamber, he and I worked on that a lot.
Sure.
One of the reasons it took so long is the arrangement of how it's being financed and built is very unique.
Okay.
And most of the time, these sports complexes are built by local government. A city or park district will borrow $30, $40, $50, $60, $70 million, right? And they'll build one and they'll operate it with the plan that all the other tax revenue that comes in will help satisfy the bond payments. Now, in that scenario, if they're wrong, that doesn't happen, then the entire community is on the hook to pay the taxes to pay for the bond payments. And when I was a city manager, I was approached more than once by people who wanted us to borrow money to build a sports complex, and they were going to operate it, and we would both share in all this money. And my position was, well, I've got other things I had to take care of: public safety, water, sewer. We're not in the business of running sports complexes, but I always said, if you wanted to do it, we could offer you an incentive to do it. Well, when I came to Springfield, we got the chance to do that. So the way this is privately financed and privately developed, and the city of Springfield is sharing additional tax revenues that come from a successful operation of the sports complex backed to the development team. But if the complex is not successful, the taxpayers of our community aren't on the hook to pay for it. And we know that most of the people that are going to end up out there are going to be from out of town. So people from somewhere else are actually paying most of the freight to develop that sports complex. Now, since that was done in a way that's not typically done, it took a lot longer to jump through the legal hoops to figure out how to do the bonding, how to do the borrowing, getting private banks involved. When a government body issues bonds, it's a lot easier to sell those on the open market than when a private developer is borrowing money. You got to go to the bank. You've got to do all the due diligence that you have to do. All that made it take a little bit longer to get done. But I believe it's going to be better off because of that
As
work.
a result, absolutely. I think so.
And when you think about all the taxing bodies in the community supported, abatement of property taxes on the sports complex, and you saw the private banks in town come together to finance it, it really is a community project. And so it's exciting to have it where it is. Their goal is to have some fields ready to go in the fall of 24. It's aggressive. And to try to have that dome up to where they can have some indoor events fall 24, early 25, with full-scale operation in about mid 25.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
To go in.
That's
so
an aggressive timeline.
It's aggressive, and the economic impact that's going to come from that is not like any of us, I don't think, can really imagine yet.
That's great.
Think about a 120-team soccer tournament coming to town.
Oh, yeah.
None of those kids drove themselves when they were 12 years old, unless you grew up where I did.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
where we did that, hillbilly, where we did that kind of stuff. But their families are bringing them and bringing siblings and everything else with them. So
spending the night in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, shopping in our stores, and that kind of development that I would imagine is going to happen out around that Shields area and the sports park as a result of that kind of traffic.
Yeah.
What the latest economic study, like 250,000 unique visitors to our community every year, somewhere
That's right.
vicinity.
And you're already seeing the vibrations of that development happen other places. So the Capital City Shopping Center on the north side of that, there's a new Hilton hotel that's being built.
Oh, really?
So
I drove by there the other day and I wondered what that was. I said, it looks like a hotel, but I wasn't.
It's a Home 2 Suites by Hilton. So it's an extended stay hotel.
Okay.
It's right there on the north side of Capital City Shopping Center, kind of tucked back behind the theater.
The movie theater. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's under construction right now. Okay. And we know there'll be additional hotels that show up at the complex. But it's going to it's generating a lot of interest already for other places around the community. My kids didn't do a lot of travel sports. We did competitive gymnastics for a couple years, but I was always that person that didn't want to stay right next door because I didn't want 50 or 100 12-year-old kids running down the hallway all night.
Right.
I only wanted my kids doing that. I didn't want to listen to everybody else's kids. But I always tried to get a few miles away, try to create a little buffer for myself. So I have to think there's a lot of people that'll do that too.
What's going in at the corner of Wabash and Chatham Road? They're clearing a bunch of dirt there where that restaurant used to be.
I heard it's another restaurant going in there.
It is? Okay.
I've seen some other work going on back there also.
Gotcha.
And there's been a few different restaurant concepts that located in that building over the years, and I'm hopeful that with the sports complex coming in, that something will stick at that corner. It's going to be a good corner.
Oh yeah.
And if you look east from there, all that land south of Stanford. All that is out there for development too.
Oh, yeah.
That is in the business district. When we did the business district for the sports complex, we expanded it.
Oh, it extended up to Stanford.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to wrap some other properties into it to maximize the economic impact of the sports complex. So,
okay.
Yeah. Those are good sites. If anyone's interested, I can help you out. So.
What I know there were a lot of different numbers and figures thrown around, and of course with all the issues, we'll just go back to COVID again. We blame COVID for supply chain issues and all those things that took place and the increase in costs. What's that look like? I know at one point the talk was $60-65 million investment to build this thing.
It's probably in the mid 70s. Yeah, I think is what they landed on.
Yeah.
Some of those prices they went up, they came down a little bit, but interest went up, and so I think probably in that mid 70s is and it's a 95 acre sports complex, and
it's quite the investment.
It's enormous
for sure.
It is really, really big, and basically if you stand on the south edge of the Shields store and look directly west as far as you can see to the woods, and then look directly north as far as you can see to the woods, that whole area
that's big.
Is a sports complex.
Yeah.
And then the dome is bigger than the store, so the physical store will be able to fit inside of the dome.
Yeah,
so
and you think about how big that store is.
Right. That dome's twice as long and taller than the store.
Wow,
man,
that's impressive.
You'll be able to see that from I-72.
Yeah, that's impressive. For sure.
It's going to be. They said it's the largest inflatable sports dome in the world. It will be till someone designs one 1 foot bigger.
Right. So they can make that claim.
That's going to happen. But it's you won't see anything like it around here. Yeah. So be good.
Cool. It's going to be a great asset for the community. That's for sure. You just mentioned I-72, and I know we've talked before with I-72 and I-55 and several Class 1 railroads. You still, from an economic development standpoint, see logistics as a substantial opportunity for the future?
I do. It is a substantial opportunity. We have a great truck driving school there at Lincoln Land Community College to support it also. Probably the biggest thing we need to do, though, is get out and sell that to companies and to their site consultants and let them know that. We all know that, but you have to get out and tell the story. So that's a big part of what the Growth Alliance does is through business attraction, we get out and make people aware of it. A couple of facts, and Nicole probably said these too, is From central Illinois, you can reach almost a third of the country's population in a one-day truck drive.
Oh, wow.
You can actually reach more people in a one-day truck drive from here than you can from Chicago.
Okay.
And if you think about that, the circle that goes with that, when you move that north, you cut out a lot of large metropolitan areas, in the South, Nashville, and other places.
Right.
So you can reach more people from Springfield than you can from Chicago or St. Louis or Kansas City. And then having 2 interstates like that, having 5 Class 1 railroads. If folks don't know about that fact, it's easy for them to assume if I want to reach a lot of people, I need to be in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just common. It's not their fault. So we have to get out and tell that story. Also, we collaborate with other economic development organizations. So the Midwest Inland Port in Decatur is only 35 miles away. So if you import or export, you don't have to do that through Chicago or St. Louis. You can be an international business and operate right here and take advantage of the intermodal facility that exists over in Decatur.
Gotcha.
So we both cross-sell that.
Sure.
And to the community. So it's a big asset. So, we get some interest in sites for warehousing and logistics. Most of these inquiries we get are people that want something that's already standing.
Gotcha.
So they want, 32 feet high ceilings, and they want, 12 dock doors, and they want all these things. And we're not, at this point, yet a spec market for industrial development. So I would be surprised if somebody came in and dropped a 500,000 square foot warehouse, put all that in there and said, let's go sell it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like down in the Pontoon Beach area there on 270 coming across, all those huge warehouses are going up. Does that bring any economic impact to that area?
Yeah, it will,
Real
big
estate,
time.
yeah.
One of the tricky things about
and how did they end up there? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, well, so a lot of this has followed the Amazon model.
Yeah.
So Amazon's model has been looking for metro areas in excess of 1 million people.
Okay.
And so we don't meet that requirement. So they ended up down in St. Louis was the next closest place that they went.
I gotcha. Okay.
So when you start, a big part of shipping, and especially international shipping, is based on the availability of these intermodal containers. So these boxes. So international containers are 40 feet long, and domestic containers are 60 feet long. I don't know why they're not all the same. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
So you have to have different chassis for trucks and different chassis for rail cars. And the containers aren't just free, right? And so you have to be around a critical mass of containers to get the containers you need. So when something like Amazon lands somewhere, that generates a lot of critical mass of shipping infrastructure, the chassis, the rail cars. And then other businesses end up there because they can get a small piece of this gigantic pie.
Gotcha.
Now, what people don't realize about Central Illinois, and so we have to tell the story, is we have an enormous critical mass of containers because of ADM over in Decatur. Before the Midwest Inland Port was built, they were shipping train loads of empty containers in just to meet their demand to fill them with product and ship them out.
Wow.
Man.
So there's thousands and thousands of containers that move through there. And so when we tell that story to a mid-sized company, they're like, well, I need to be able to get containers. And we've got containers. If you bring them in, ADM will fill them up and send them out, and you save them what's called matchback.
Okay.
That's the matchback cost. Because if you ship a full container in and you don't have someone to fill that up, there's a cost on your bill. It's not itemized, but it's buried in there for them to ship that empty container somewhere else. They want that container full as much as
when
possible.
it leaves.
Yeah.
Right. So learning to be able to tell that story about the matchback.
Oh, that makes sense.
And it takes time. So basically, you asked me what time it was. I told you I had to build a watch. I hope that's helpful and nobody falls asleep.
Much
but
so.
I've
always wanted to ask somebody that knows. So
being able to access that critical mass of containers and chassis and all those things that you need. If you're the only person using it, it's very expensive.
Gotcha.
Sure.
Yeah.
But when you can tap into it.
Yeah,
So,
it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just that density that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Cool. We want to respect your time and not keep you all day.
Sorry,
But
you seem interested in what I'm saying. That doesn't always happen to me.
No, we are. Yeah. And I'm curious about the natural gas power plant.
Oh, yeah.
And that development, I know, has been in the works a long time.
We laugh because we've been working on these things for a long time. So that project it's interesting. I competed for that project when I was in Decatur. And I lost it to these guys. They beat me. But I got the last lap because I came over here and still got to work on it. But that project is going well. So as an update, all the permits have been issued. The Illinois EPA has issued all the construction permits that they need. So all that is completed. All they have to do is finish closing on their financing and they can start construction right now. It looks like early 2024.
Awesome.
So the financing picture has come together now. They appear to have that secured and signed off on. The exact investors have not been disclosed publicly yet, but they're large, as you can imagine. It's about a $1.4 billion project to build this 1,100 megawatt natural gas power plant just south of Pawnee.
Still in the same location.
Still in the same location.
It was 7 years ago when we first started.
That location is really unique with having the location of the transmission line plus 2 natural gas pipelines nearby.
Yeah.
It's a really, really unique location. I couldn't beat it. I had a really good spot too, I thought.
Yeah.
But then when I heard about the one that you had here, it's like, well, that's better than the one that I had to offer. But that will be an enormous shot in the arm economically too. So we're talking about 500 construction workers over a 5-year period to build this. And you're looking at communities like Pawnee and Divernon.
Yeah.
This will be an enormous shot in the arm for them for economically, which is great. And it just shows how economic development can happen in the rural areas too.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's very common for people to think, oh, it's all going to happen in Springfield. But if you really look at Springfield, and if you need 100 acres, you're not going to find that inside the city limits of Springfield.
Right. That's right.
And so we work closely with the other municipalities around the county as they plan their infrastructure improvements and developments that can support business. This will be another enormous project here that, when I got here, people are like, that'll never happen. So I just made a list of things that were never going to happen, right?
Yeah. Right.
And we got to work on them. So
I talked to somebody else, a naysayer in the community. They're out there. And
as you said, there's some people that's their job,
say.
full-time job.
Exactly.
That's okay. I don't try to convince them. You just, as a community, we have to not be afraid to try.
Right. And these things don't happen overnight, right?
They don't.
As we were talking the other day about this, we first had an initial conversation with these folks in January of 2017 about this, and began to help put together the properties to see if this could happen. That's 7 years ago almost.
Crazy. Yeah.
And then you took the thing and really carried it a long ways and got it across the finish line.
It was interesting. It's been an interesting process, and it really, community development and community growth is just a battle of not giving up. Of just being politely persistent. Just keep on going. The outcome that you want doesn't change, right? It's just the path along the way has to be nimble. It has to move side to side, and you went through a gubernatorial administration change on this project for the power plant. That changes things. You have to adapt to that, move forward, get people on board. I think sometimes people watch to see if you're going to give up or not. And if you just don't give up and you just kind of keep pushing on it. I always felt like this one was going to happen, even though it's an enormous project. It's just, and you saw the changes at the state level with the energy bill. And that actually a lot of folks thought that was going to cause this project to go away.
Probably
but it actually did the opposite.
Yeah.
Of that. It actually improved the business case for this power plant.
Gotcha.
So it actually helped us move the project forward. But
that's awesome.
It's been a good learning process getting it there. And all these things we've talked about, right? The power plant, sports complex, all these things are built with our folks. So all these projects are going to use our tradespeople to build them. So we do have highly talented tradespeople right here that are doing some of the biggest and most innovative projects in the world, building them right here. And that's a big factor we can sell to.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool to be able to say that.
It is. They send their kids to school here. They shop here. They spend their money here. They do a lot of things to promote the community, and that's really great.
I think Mike O'Shea had mentioned, I asked him, what if he was concerned about anything in the future, and he goes, being able to have the workforce to handle the demand of what's coming down the pipeline. I mean, he was very confident about that, which is good and bad. But
and you look at all the work going on. I mean, the state has $500 million in the Capitol complex and all the downtown work they're doing. And then I heard recently that IDOT has $500 million planned in road projects here in the next 3 years too.
Yeah, right.
We have a $1.4 billion power plant. All the work going on at the schools.
It's going to take a few workers.
We have this solar project. This Double Black Diamond Solar. Which is $750 million solar project under construction right now. There's 300 or 400 tradespeople out there working 6 days a week. That's down in southwest Sangamon County. So it's going to be west of Thayer.
Okay.
And a little bit southeast of Waverly.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
4,200 acres. It's the equivalent of covering Lake Springfield with solar panels.
Holy cow.
That's crazy.
It's
When you think about it in that
That's
perspective.
unbelievable.
I went out with the project manager to check in recently. It took us an hour to drive around the thing.
Wow.
It's like, remember in Star Wars when they pull up in their vehicle and there's like all this dust and all this work going on out there in the desert or whatever. That's what I felt like when I pulled up out there. Because
Wow.
I mean, you can see forever out there. It's such a flat rural area. Then you pull up on this site and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Wow.
The amount of work going on out there. There's hundreds and hundreds of jobs now that are going to be around for a long time in these trades, and getting folks involved in those. It's interesting to see our schools focusing on teaching people to go to work and not just teaching them to go to school, right?
Yep.
And you see so many kids now that are coming out of high school and they're college and career ready.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah.
And that's really, really exciting. Yeah. We need to have signing days like they have for athletes, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So these students that go to work right out of high school need to have the hard hat signed up.
It's a great idea.
And have like a signing day ceremony.
I love that.
So, because they're going to wonder, right?
Right.
What do people think that I'm not going to college, but you're going to work.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Good
what matters.
stuff.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a bunch for your time. We sure do appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me
Sit
on.
here and talk forever about all of this. But the folks who tune in probably don't want to hear
No.
me or Brad much longer.
No.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for everything you're doing for the community.
Well, you guys, you're big supporters of the community. We appreciate what you do. You have an enormous investment here, and we're really, really appreciative of that.
Thank you.
So if there's anything we can do to help you out, let us know.
All right. Thank
We'll
you.
do it.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
man.
Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yep.